I wanted to welcome everyone to our next VerseTech event. We're actually doing an event now on fashion in the metaverse. And I've always found it interesting to look at technology underpinnings and even more that kind of the human side of what drives certain behaviors, because human behaviors actually change slowly and very little over time compared to technology. And the actual following human behaviors and even kind of the economic behaviors of people is a great way to understand and sort of predict what may happen even in new spaces of technology. And that technology can at times be amplifying certain things or channeling it, but the raw human behavior is always there to drive it. So whether we're talking about things like fashion, identity as our recent topics, or other things like blockchain, XR, VR, AR, all of those things are underpinnings of what will be possible in the metaverse. And it's the interaction of technology and the psychology and the economic incentives that really determine how these virtual worlds actually function and what people do in them. We started this group in summer, a little bit before the famous Facebook Meta rebrand. And we're definitely very interested in keeping people informed on what's going on in the space, having great speakers that are experts in various areas and kind of learning along with our audience as well. I've always been more of a picks and shovels kind of person where I like to kind of understand what helps support creators and builders in the space. And we'll be focusing on a lot of that as well. I wanted to introduce our first speaker of the event. So we have Jade McSorley. So she's a PhD researcher at the University of Creative Arts and co-founder at Lonehood. Her research focused on the digital transformation of fashion through a consumer perspective and to understand the connection between digital identity and fashion consumption. And she's had experience as a fashion model for 14 years, and it's had a huge impact on her work and her advocacy for a sustainable fashion future. So I will pass it on to Jade now, who will be kicking us off.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be asked to contribute to this session and to talk and to lead you through my PhD research. I'm going to hopefully be able to share my screen. Hopefully it works this time, Alec, because I obviously had issues last time. Can everybody see this?
Yes, looks good.
Yeah, fab. Okay. So like Alex said, I'm doing my PhD. I'm a researcher. So I, as a researcher, have to remain very, very neutral. So I'm more than happy for you guys to tell me your opinion of this. I have to just kind of see it from both sides, the pros and cons. So I'm really, really interested to hear your feedback going forward. So please ask questions. My PhD research is, in a very, very tight nutshell, is how we will dress for the metaverse and why we will be dressing for the metaverse. The longer explanation of my PhD research is this kind of speculative exploration of the role of fashion and its position between this kind of cross between the digital realm and the physical world. Like, what impact will the way we dress in the metaverse have on our physical selves? And it seeks to understand why we will consume for our digital identity, looking at the fashion's digital transformation and looking at these kind of new ways of dressing and consuming. I can't go into all my PhD research in this kind of short session. I will be looking at sustainability and whether kind of digital fashion is a solution for the fashions, the unsustainability and the environmental issues that are surrounding the fashion industry that I'm sure you're all aware of. And digital fashion is kind of seen as a solution to that, or a band-aid for that. But that is one side of it. But actually what I want to kind of focus on today is more the identity aspect. So if fashion has so much importance in physical reality on our identities, what role will it play in a virtual one? Now I can skip this slide because I know that you all know what a metaverse is, or you all have your own kind of idea of what a metaverse is, because obviously it's been shaped and we still don't know what it will look like. But I'll skip that one. But what I want to look at is the fashion's digital transformation, and this kind of the fashion industry's response to this online culture, and as we kind of evolve within the metaverse. And there's a few kind of quotes here that I picked up that were quite interesting. And it's saying that it will be difficult to distinguish between our digital reality and our physical reality, as it will become one and the same, interweave to form a single reality. And also the identity lines are blurring between in real life and our digital self, like they're blurring, and kind of broader notions of gender. Imagine the debate when we can represent as an entirely new species. And this was Michaela LaRosse, who's head of content at The Fabricant, which is a digital fashion house that was kind of pioneering digital fashion. They created this digital fashion garment that you see here in this image. This garment obviously doesn't exist. It is only kind of worn for online purposes, and it was actually bought for $9,500 at an auction. And the last one as well is as we all become digi-sapiens, will the politics of real world identity pale into significance or be magnified by the digital, become ever more vital than ever? This is the kind of the ethical implications of our digital identity within these worlds that we must consider as we kind of cross over to these physical boundaries. And, you know, when I was looking at my, oh, sorry that my dog is joining us. As we were, you know, I was looking at the way that we'll express ourselves in the metaverse. You know, there's no theory there for me to kind of look at. There's no academic journals for me to kind of research this and kind of pull different quotes to kind of back my argument. So I have to go back to the kind of traditional ways of looking at fashion and looking at fashion psychology and see if it applies in the metaverse. Does it have the same significance and same relevance? And I would argue, yes, it does, because the way we dress is fundamental to our self-expression, as Caroline Mayer said. And will it be as fundamental within this metaverse? And it's based on this psychological dualism, so this form of imitation versus the need for individualism. So it's kind of like we do copy people. We look at, like, you know, celebrities or influencers at icon and we dress in a certain way. But then there's also this feeling of trying to stand out and being an individual. And our possessions becoming a major contributor and reflection of our identities. Does our possessions need to be material, or can they be immaterial in the same way that video games and you buy skins and weapons, and are they still part of your possessions? So again, I had to look at, you know, when talking about video games, I had to look at video game theory, because, you know, there's definitely a connection between players and their avatars. And what is that? What does that mean? And can it be applied to fashion? So there's certain theories that were really interesting to me during my research, and one was game feel. I don't know if there's any gamers on this call, so you can probably kind of tell me more about this. But it's a way that we address this physical feeling when you're a player, and when your avatar experiences something, you feel it as a physical person. There's also spatial presence, where you kind of immerse yourself into these worlds. And I know that Mark Zuckerberg talks a lot about social presence, which is very similar. And then you have this kind of extended self, knowing or unknowingly, we regard our possessions as part of ourselves, which is what I was talking about before. And Belker's arguing that this is the same within the digital world. And also we have the Proteus effect, which I find the most fascinating one, is these kind of behavioral changes in a virtual environment that may kind of come over and cross over into your real life. And there's a lot of studies and focus groups looking at how people react within virtual worlds, and how that kind of has an impact on the way that they react in their physical lives, whether that is fleeting, that kind of impact and that effect, but there's definitely a connection there. So here's just some kind of, different ways that the fashion is digitally transforming through digital fashion, avatar, even filters. And there's there's different ways of achieving this kind of digital transformation and expressing ourselves. So I'll go back into it. I thought it was coming from my PowerPoint. So I just wanted to highlight Tamara Ingles. She is from Angola, and she uses digital fashion in a way of kind of expressing expressing her heritage. And she feels like digital fashion, through filters or even through tilt brushes where she creates this garment, is a way of her kind of expressing herself beyond physical boundaries. And also we need to look at representation within the metaverse and how we kind of provide a platform for everybody to feel represented. You know, looking at kind of avatars as they stand, like Lara Croft, there's a very specific way that a woman is portrayed. And I very much believe that, you know, we need to kind of approach this space in a way that kind of builds upon the diversity and the inclusivity that we've had, that we're trying to achieve in our physical lives. This is an avatar of a digital creator called Catty Tay, and it's the first non-binary avatar that they created, just as an example of what can be achieved with these technologies. Obviously, you have Lil Michaela, as well, that are virtual influencers, and you also have Shudu, which have been created by, you know, people sat at their computers, and especially Little Michaela, who has a voice, and she's very political, and she's also a singer, and she has so much influence. And, you know, we need to consider that these virtual influencers are not real. You know, they're created by somebody sat behind a computer, and it's not their thoughts and opinions, it's obviously somebody else's. So we need to think about the ethical frameworks of this. And I know that Meta are considering kind of the ethical framework about virtual influencers, are kind of, you know, to show that these are not real people, these are avatars that are being created. And, you know, to think about the implications of our identity within this real world. How do we retain the ownership around these kind of avatars that we are creating of ourselves, especially as we create more avatars and more kind of realistic captures of ourselves within these metaverses? Like, how do we kind of own that and prove that there's a real person sat behind it? Because obviously, you know, as we step beyond the metaverse, these kind of digital representations of ourselves can be used in a lot of other ways, such as deepfake, which is, you know, if you've seen the deepfake Tom Cruise, which I'll play for you, which is actually quite funny, but obviously this is not
easy to
Tom
do.
Cruise.
Discipline, hard work. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's crazy.
So that is not Tom Cruise, it's somebody else who looks very much like Tom Cruise. And within my research, I'm using the digital model, I'm using the model industry. I come from a modeling background, so I'm using the model industry as a case study, because they're getting often frequently asked to digitize their models to be used across e-commerce, or in campaigns or in runway. And I'm asking this question, who owns that? Who owns that avatar? Is it the model themselves because it's their data, or is it the people that are creating the avatar? Is it, you know, is it the technology because you're using the tools? Like, who owns it, and how do we retain the ownership of it, especially when we're going to monetize that avatar? And just quickly, because I know I'm running out of time, I just wanted to kind of show you a few of the ways that I've explored my own identity within these, like digitizing myself for the metaverse or for any online purposes. So this one I used volumetric capture, which was created to kind of create this photorealistic capture of me. Obviously, it's not the best quality. This was done at the University of the Arts London, and you can see my face is a little bit squished and I've lost like my nose. But you know, we created this moving avatar of myself. It's all my measurements, it's the way I move, all the kind of nuances of my own kind of unique movement, that I want to retain the ownership. In fact, I don't own this avatar because it was captured during my employment at the University of the Arts. So I don't own that avatar essentially. But, you know, you can see different ways in order to create these avatars that could exist within the metaverse. I won't show you, actually I will show the video. So this is the project that we did with the Fashion Innovation Agency, Dandelion and Burdock, for the Victor and Albert Museum. So the idea behind that project was essentially for my avatar to be used in a lot of different contexts. This one was to create your own kind of art, direct your own fashion shoot. So you could change the background, you could change the props, you could change the lighting, but essentially that was me. And I would hope that my image would never be manipulated outside of that, because it's a realistic capture of me. Obviously, if there is a synthetic avatar of me, that could probably be edited a lot more. And I just want to say, coming from a model perspective, when I get my image taken as a model, the photographer owns that image, and they can edit and manipulate that in whichever way they want. And the model industry has come a long way in trying to stop that happening, and trying to, you know, stop photoshopping, and trying to kind of create a diverse range of models to represent brands. And, you know, if we create these avatars for themselves, does there need to be a limit on the way that we can edit and manipulate these avatars? Going back again to the virtual influencers who, you know, are created by somebody's idea of what that beauty is and what their idea of beauty is. And another way of kind of my identity is captured, I thought this was interesting because this is not essentially me, but it is my movement. And again, that is part of my identity of how I move. And I use mocap to control this avatar created by Ep6. Again, this was with the Fashion Innovation Agency when I worked there, and Yahoo Riot Lab. And I was controlling this crash test dummy, and I really felt connected to this avatar, actually, even though I felt like I was embodying it in a way. And it was kind of that idea of, you know, game feel, or even Proteus effect. You know, you feel kind of affected by something that's happening in virtual reality. So I'll just show a little bit of this, and you can see moving.
Cut. I want to change a couple of things. Change her shirt to white and stop the rain, please.
Love it.
This is perfect. Thanks, guys.
Give it some attitude.
I hate that bit where it says give us some attitudes. But I mean, as you can see, you know, that whole thing was supposed to be about, you know, from all over the world, you could kind of art direct this shoot. And, you know, I felt like it was important to have a real life person kind of moving that dummy to kind of create a sense of that human quality, which I really feel like we need. And interestingly, somebody asked me they wanted my mocap data for an avatar, and they wanted to buy it, basically my mocap data for this avatar, which again comes down to who owns that data of me moving, who owns it. And something that Alec said, obviously, you know, earlier about human nature, and I said, you know, I thought this was a really good page from a book called The Age of Earthquakes, and it says, truth is, human nature doesn't change, only our technology does. And every new technology allows us to learn something new about ourselves. And I thought it was quite poignant because, like it or not, our society is morphing into a digital platform, and we need to understand these tools and how we can use them for, you know, to answer these ethical implications, but also to help us push beyond the boundaries of physical in order to allow us to express ourselves in the most positive way. And yeah, just leave it on a question, how will you dress for the metaverse? It would be really interesting to know. But thank you very much for listening, and thank you for the soundtrack, whoever that was.
Thank you, Jade. Sorry about that. I knew you were playing videos, so at first it didn't click that it was not something you had played, and then all of a sudden I heard all the cursing. I'm like, oh no, that can't be right.
Oh no, I know. I was like, I didn't know what to do, because I was thinking, is it coming from my platform? And I just felt everybody's face just watching me and wondering what I was doing. It wasn't me.
Well, we learn something every day, and I learned that letting people unmute themselves is nice in theory, but not in practice, apparently, because it can be abused.
Oh, well, thanks, Becky, for jumping in there as well and saving me.
We had a couple questions come in, and if there's more, definitely hit them in the chat. So the first one was about energy impact and consumption. That's kind of something that's come up in fashion and kind of waste and fast fashion. And despite being digital, the fact that there's blockchains involved does have some impact on sustainability and energy use as well. So wanted to see what your thoughts are on that aspect.
I mean, that's definitely something that I'm kind of hesitant to tread on, because I don't think there's enough data there to kind of say that digital fashion is the solution to, you know, the fashion industry's environmental impact. I think I think it can help for sure if we do it in the right way, but I just think, you know, at the moment, digital fashion can just seem as a bit of a band-aid to kind of covering up a problem that is maybe a little bit more long-term. And I don't think necessarily just kind of digitizing everything is going to help, especially on the consumption side. Yes, and the production side, in terms of like limiting the amount of samples that you need, you know, that need to be produced, etc., and everything can be designed and digitally. I think that is super helpful. But I think, yes, we just need to be considerate, because also, does digital fashion just offer us another way of buying more? It's not, is it going to actually affect the way that we consume physically in our physical lives, or is it just going to offer us another outlet to buy more and more and more? So I think these are things that are going to evolve and we just need to pay attention to over time.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing, because I've actually looking into this myself in terms of blockchain technology. It's not kind of just a single way to do things. There's actually quite a lot of different variations and kind of trade-offs offered, and some have definitely less energy impact. You trade off at times kind of security, performance, and sort of the compute / energy. And depending on where you're looking at, there's ways to make decisions that aren't as impactful. I know the Bitcoin using the energy equivalent of Argentina gets talked about a lot, but not everything is Bitcoin. And there are ways that are being developed, and it's a very exciting space with new technology coming out all the time.
Yeah, and I think that you know, the blockchain and NFT could be very helpful. If when I was asking the question about ownership, like maybe that is something about, you know, there's something there, like especially with the model agencies that I've been speaking to. It's like, you know, is there a way to like monitor and own the model's data through kind of NFTs and blockchain? Is that the way to do it, rather than just, you know, creating NFTs of digital fashion garments? Is there a better purpose for them?
Yeah. Second question, also from Carla. Aside from the products a brand currently offers, what would you suggest they should focus on when building kind of new digital identities in the metaverse? What are some opportunities there?
Aside from the products brands coming up, what would you suggest it should focus on? Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, there's like the brands are seeing digital fashion assets as something that they can add on to physical items. It's like a bonus, you know, a bonus to kind of buying the physical item. Like, buy this physical item, you also get this digital representation of it. But I don't think there's enough out there for people to actually kind of express themselves. You know, they can dress certain avatars or they can dress certain things, but there's no kind of tools there for somebody to unless you're well versed in this technology. I don't think there's much there for, you know, the average fashion consumer to kind of explore and be creative in the way that they kind of show themselves. So I think allowing those tools and allowing it to be a bit more democratic in that way, instead of having to, like, you know, learn about Unreal and Unity and Daz 3D and things like that. You know, there's what can we do to provide, instead of just buying goods like that sit in your digital wardrobe, which are not really doing much, especially in the metaverse. You have to come in from so many different angles, and like the platforms don't even connect to each other. You buy for one platform, you can't buy to the other, and unless it's universal, it kind of has no utility.
Yep. We've got one more question, and it's actually, excuse me, it's actually interesting because our second presenter, I think, is going to touch on these as well. So it's good. Good we have lots of coverage here. So who will be leading digital fashion? Is it new brands, legacy brands, independent creators? What do you see in this space?
I mean, within the fashion industry, it's the ones that have the money at the moment. Let's be honest. It's the ones that, you know, they see this as an opportunity, and they have the means to do it. I think there's a lot of kind of attention to educating students and emerging designers to kind of use this technology, because the roles within like industry is changing. There's more skill sets required, and they're generally more focused on technology. So I think, yes, in time it will be kind of the new startups and the people who can see outside of the box. But at the moment, it's the ones that have the resources. So I think it will change, but it will come with time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jade. So
Yeah, no,
now
thank you very much.
I'll be introducing our second presenter, Nico Farah. So she's CEO and Chief Metaverse Officer. And she is a Web3 strategist, tech futurist, executive consultant, engineer, and serial entrepreneur. And she's founder of Chief Metaverse Officer, a leading metaverse SaaS and consultancy company, working with the top brands and retailers on strategizing, designing, and executing their Web3 presence through metaverse, NFTs, gaming, virtual fashion, and other technology in sustainable, accessible ways. She's also the founder of Queendom, the first ever decentralized metaverse platform created and led by women and minorities that is onboarding and empowering women, LGBTQ, BIPOC, and individuals with differing cognitive or physical abilities by offering them a safe and thriving environment with minimal barriers to entry. So I'll pass it along to Nico now, who'll be giving us a lot more information as well.
Thank you so much, Alec. Thank you, Jade, for your great presentation. I'm going to share my screen and we get started.
Yep. Oops,
right. So, hi, everyone. I'm going to continue the conversation that Jade amazingly started and focus more on the tech infrastructure and more actionable items. And I have some perspectives around the questions that were asked. And hopefully we can have fruitful conversations together. So digital fashion and a transition to the metaverse is actually the biggest transformation in the fashion industry by far. We have seen brands, big brands and small brands stepping into this space. For example, Nike created a virtual world in Roblox last year, and they created virtual stores. They created fun experiences for their audience in Roblox. We also saw that Nike acquired a digitally native sneaker brand called Artifact. Artifact was actually one of the most successful brands in the NFT space. They had just one partnership with a teenage designer that sold over $3 million in less than 5 minutes of NFTs. And they have been facilitating the transition of Nike into the metaverse. So this is just an example of the momentum we see in this space. But before digging deeper into this transformation, I think it's helpful if we are on the same page on the concepts and terms that are being used. So starting from Web3, actually Web3 and Web 3.0 are not the same. So Web 1.0 was connecting information. That's the internet that we know of. Web 2.0 was connecting people. That's the social media. And Web 3.0 is connecting people, places, and things. Web 3, however, is a bit different. It's actually a term coined by the founder of Polkadot and co-founder of Ethereum. And Web 3 stands for decentralized online ecosystem based on blockchain. So what is blockchain? We may have heard of it being used a lot of times. But it's simply put, it's basically just a type of shared database. And these data are being in forms of digital blocks, and then they get connected to the previous block using cryptography. And then when these are connected, they are connected to each other through a chronological order. So that that's how this timestamp that this information is being connected to the chain is what defines this kind of transaction or connection. And that's what makes it unique, and it makes it immutable. So we cannot go and change this afterwards. And if this change wants to happen, every other node in the chain needs to agree and be on the consensus. So immutability is a huge part of blockchain. The other part is about transparency. If you have a node, or if you have a blockchain explorer, you're able to see the transaction, at the moment, and you can see what's happening at any part of the blockchain. So it's fully transparent. And blockchains can be either decentralized or centralized, but the most common form of it is decentralized, meaning that no single entity or person is in control. Instead, all the users are collectively retaining control. So one of the blockchain can be used in many applications, but one of the most common ones that we know is to use for storing transactions, and that's the cryptocurrency, and that's the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that we know of. You can also use blockchain for just storing voting. If you want to, basically anytime you want to take away the middleman and have trust, because these timestamps are doing that kind of validation, you basically can do that using the blockchain. So you can use it for supply chain transparency, you can use it for voting, you can use it for many applications, but the most common one is the cryptocurrency that we know of. And then there's the concept of smart contracts. So smart contracts are basically codes that are built on the blockchain, and they can be used for facilitating, verifying, and negotiating different agreements on the blockchain. So there are basically some sorts of conditions that are being agreed among the users, and then when those conditions are met, the certain terms in the contract can be automatically implemented. And then there is a part about NFTs, and NFTs are very valuable because of the power of smart contracts and blockchain. So what is NFT? We may all have heard of them these days. So first of all, they're non-fungible. That means they're not replaceable with another item. For example, you can replace a Bitcoin with another Bitcoin, a dollar with another dollar, but you cannot replace a trading card with another one. They're unique. You cannot replace a house with another house. They're unique. So in that sense, they're non-fungible. Non-fungible token means basically any digital item. So let's say you have a music, you have a picture, you have anything, or even picture of a physical item, any sort of digital item can be an NFT and put on the blockchain and minted on the blockchain, and then you will have the ownership of that in the same decentralized way that I described, without a middleman, and all of this information can be put into the metadata of the NFT and through the smart contract. So what is Metaverse? Metaverse is nothing but the future of internet. There are so many definitions around the Metaverse, and that makes it sometimes confusing. Their definition on Wikipedia as a network of 3D virtual worlds focused on social connection. There is also definition of convergence of the physical and digital lives. I would say it's better not to toil over these different types of definition and instead focusing on the outcome. The outcome that we are all looking for is enhancing our digital experiences. We're already spending a lot of time on Zoom, on social media, on the internet, for work, for everything we do in our lives. So with Metaverse technologies, with Web3 technologies, we are just enhancing all these experiences. We want to make it much more immersive. We want to make it much more efficient. So that's the overall idea. Now, in terms of the connection with the fashion industry, fashion industry has historically had a lot of challenges, like Jade mentioned, around sustainability and so on. But we have seen the digitization and dematerialization of the fashion industry already happening. We have seen for some time that in the games, people are purchasing the skins for their avatars to express themselves. We also can use digital garments to express ourselves on social media. We have seen brands like DressX already providing that at a very reasonable price. We can also use them on, Zoom meetings very soon, and so many other places that we digitally are living our lives. We will be able to use these digital garments. And it's important to note that not every digital garment is an NFT. Only if they're minted on the blockchain, we can have the benefits of the NFTs on top of the already existing benefits of digital fashion, like sustainability. We're going to have so much more that I'm going to talk about. But looking at the market helps to understand this transformation a bit better. We have seen big brands like Gucci creating digital items, just a single digital bag that they created, sold at a higher price than the physical bag itself. And that wasn't even an NFT. It could be a lot more valuable if it was an NFT. We saw Louis Vuitton creating a game in a celebration of the 200th birthday of their founder. And through that game, they shared the history of the brand and gamified this experience, and were able to share the story to their fans in a very fun way. We had Burberry creating a game and selling NFTs through that, and using that as a great way of storytelling. We had Balenciaga partnering with Fortnite, and we know Fortnite is one of the very successful games nowadays, and they're powered by Epic Games, which is the parent company behind Unreal Engine, one of the most powerful game engines that is being used for creating metaverse platforms. So there is a lot happening in this space. So what are the opportunities for us as users or consumers? So obviously sustainability, we have 97% less emission when we are creating a digital garment compared to a physical. And to answering the question that was sent earlier about sustainability around NFTs, as Alec briefly mentioned, there are so many different chains. So we may all have heard of Ethereum, which is using proof of work for validation of the blockchain transactions, but there are so many other chains. As we speak, people are working on them. An example like what we are using in our business is Solana. For a single transaction that you usually need for purchasing an NFT, the power consumption equals to a light bulb being on for 6 seconds. So it's almost nothing compared to all the other energy consumptions that we all use in our daily lives. And unfortunately, media has been misinforming the general public around that. And it's being improved. It's always a work in progress. And then we have the benefit of, these digital garments for expressing ourselves in ways that was not possible before. You have no limitation but your imagination. You can wear fire, you can wear waterfall, you can create anything. And all of that has been possible through digital fashion. And, the other part is about accessibility. Previously, we know luxury was always very pricey. It was out of reach. Because the process, the craftsmanship that went into creating a digital garment was expensive. And nowadays, because of this digital fashion production being much easier and just dependent on a software and a designer, this could be more accessible and the price point can go down. It's also amazing how we are seeing this blockchain technology is democratizing this space. Now, smaller brands, smaller, indie designers, they do not need to be connected to big fashion houses to produce and connect with the audience. They can go ahead and create their own. They can create their own NFTs. They can create their own virtual stores. I will get more into the brand's perspective, but it has really revolutionized the industry, the democratization of power, economy, culture, and event tech. And the other part is about inclusivity that, again, Jade mentioned briefly. We have no more limitation. So all the challenges we had in the fashion industry around, wholesalers not providing certain size, or, models not being available for certain presentations. So they would use like a size 8 and call it plus size, there's no more limitation. They can create virtual influencers and you need to. They have no limitation of fabric or factory. Everything can be done. There is no more excuse around that. And what are the opportunities for the brands? So first of all, there is a new revenue stream for the brands in a sense that, they can have a digital twin of a physical item. That's the simplest way to look at it. You can create NFTs that are digital only, and you can sell that, and that helps in a way that you are going to create an exclusive access, a personalized experience for your audience. You get to be in touch with them and know more information about them, and you're not necessarily creating for the mass anymore. So that also helps with the sustainability and being more efficient throughout the process. You're gonna reach out to them, maybe get their size, get their taste, and have a more deeper connection with your audience. You will be also able to connect with your audience as their community nowadays, which is the big part of Web3. This community can help and guide your brand. Now you can be a lot more efficient in your product development process, in your marketing process, because you are in touch with your audience and you know what they are looking for. You can engage them into the voting process, and that's the decentralization that is really powerful. So they are no longer just consumers, they're actually users. They could be part of the creation process. It's also helpful, there's new opportunities around the metaverse. You have no more limitation of the physical location. You can create a virtual store that is global. You can create a virtual show that is global. You can bring in all of your audience at the same time, at the same place, or have it open 24/7. And all of these opportunities was not possible before. We had a fashion show that was limited to a very few number of people, and the rest of us had to watch it through a 2D, TV or computer. But now we could be all immersed in these experiences and be part of these movements. And then it's also a great opportunity for, expressing ourselves in the metaverse. So these fashion brands can create special garments. We all going to spend more time in this, digital and virtual environments soon. And so how are we going to express ourselves? Through these digital garments. And we all need a digital closet for our metaverse. So all of these are huge opportunities for the brands to broaden their audience, to broaden their portfolio and serve more customers. And how can you effectively get into this space? So there is a part about short-term presence, like you could be starting with a fashion show, a virtual fashion show, and kind of experience how your audience respond, gauge their interest around different experiences, around different products that you could offer, around different kind of storytelling methods that you want to have. That's the short-term presence. You can have also a longer-term presence by creating a virtual store and bringing your audience to them. And we see a lot of NFT drops that are happening. NFTs are so powerful, especially for the luxury brands when they want to keep the brand image. They don't want to necessarily give a discount or free product, but they want to still incentivize and reward the brand affinity. So this NFTs are a huge tool for that, because you can engage your audience with the story of the brand. And it's not just a transaction. So throughout the process of an NFT drop, you can gamify that, you can engineer that to be kind of like some sort of requirements that they have to do certain steps, engage with your Discord, engage with your Twitter account, build up the hype around your brand. So there's so many ways that you can benefit from this. And then this NFT could be an access point for a lot more engagement and opportunities to interact with your audience. So there's so many ways you can get into it. Fashion industry in general has had a poor track record in terms of anticipating and adapting new technologies previously, but this time around we're seeing they're moving a lot faster. They could, bigger brands are trying to compete with the digitally native brands. The advantage of digitally native brands is that they could move faster, and they're more creative, and they have less kind of approval process. So each of them have their own advantages, but we shall see who will succeed first. There are also a lot of work in progress in this space. So one of the biggest challenge is interoperability. For example, if you are creating digital garments in Clo3D or Marvelous Designer, they're not automatically prepared to be used in a metaverse platform or in a game engine. They have to be optimized. And this optimization is not well defined, is not standardized. So there's a lot of work around that needs to happen, both from the software producers to brands and designers. So there is a lot that we have to do together. And then there is also challenges around GPU power and broadband internet. Like if we had better computers, better GPUs, we wouldn't need to optimize these garments that are beautifully created and they're very complex in these digital fashion softwares. In order to bring it into this kind of environments and have a real-time virtual presence, we have to optimize them right now. But hopefully when our internet, we have 5G more accessible, 6G, whatever after that, with that, we will be able to make it more accessible for everyone. The other aspect that is still room for improvement is around inclusivity. We said there is no limitation around, the technology of creating more inclusive avatars or more inclusive garments and being gender neutral or so on. But it all goes back to the imagination and decision of the creators and brands. So we have to, again, come together and create more inclusive future and not repeat the same mistakes that we had previously. For all of this, this is a work that we all need to come together and do. And Web3 is all about collaboration and co-creation. So that's why myself and a group of other, fashion experts coming together to create the Fashion DAO, which is, a decentralized autonomous organization where we are collaborating, co-creating to create standards and guidelines and hopefully filling these gaps for a better future for all of us. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you so much. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please add them to the channel. I think we did hit some of the previous questions as well from the other talk too. Okay, we have one question already. Will fashion remain literal, or will it become more and more abstract if we don't have physics? That's super interesting.
I'm not a fashion designer, so I would say yes, it could become abstract. I think Jade might be able to answer that question better.
Because it wouldn't let me unmute myself then. I hope it doesn't stay literal. I think there's purpose for a literal representation, but I would hope that people find more kind of outlets to express parts of themselves that they couldn't in real life. But I think it depends on context. Every time I ask somebody, how will you dress for the metaverse, especially a fashion consumer, they ask me where they're going. So I think that's really important to know, is like the context of where you're going and what you would wear, just like you would choose an outfit in real life.
Excellent. And I'm definitely not in the fashion space, but kind of coming from a tech background, I see a lot of people interested in these PFP projects, which are kind of animals or kind of fantastical things that people are using as their identity now. And clearly having an ape with laser eyes is not something you could do in real life, but people are really considering this as kind of part of what they believe in terms of crypto futures or other things. So really interesting to see the opportunities for expression. So another question, we're studying the role of influencers in this new future as they represent niche communities and lobby for diversity. Could they be a tool of ensuring we have an inclusive future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, influencers are, the great way to connect with the users and consumers. So definitely, it's all about, coming together from different perspectives, both from the creators, and, influencers and models to be carrying these items, to be showcasing these items. They can definitely impact the future and make it more inclusive, for sure.
Great, excellent. Okay, I think we're about to wrap up, and really appreciated the questions from everyone and the great presentations. I certainly learned a lot myself, and I'm really glad we can have people come together from all parts of the world and participate in these sessions. So thanks everyone, and we'll try to get the recording out as soon as we can, and we'll follow up at the next meeting. Have a good day.